I'm going to be reworking one of the worst aspects of Splatoon so that hopefully it'll be put in Splatoon 3. So if you're a fan of this series, then you'll know that Moray Towers is a pretty well-known stage next to Urchin Underpass. These are pretty much considered staple stages in Splatoon, and while Urchin received renovations in Splatoon 1 and Moray was reworked twice in Splatoon 2, Urchin is the only good stage of the two, and here's why. We'll be taking a look at the version of Moray present in Splatoon 2. So for one, the verticality of it is way too much, and it takes a really long time to reach mid compared to a flat stage where you can reach mid in a fair amount of time. You're also extremely vulnerable while dropping, and if the enemy is good enough, they can easily pick you out of the sky. There also aren't any inkable walls where you can get back up. Everything is essentially a one-way drop apart from these walls in mid, with mid being very small. There is good terrain here, but again, it's too small, so I think we can do better, just like how the subscriber count could be better. So do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so we reach 20k by the end of the year, because if so, I'll be giving one of you a $100 eShop card. But back with the stage, our goal was to keep the main gimmicks the stage offered, being its verticality in the ink rails, while taking out what doomed the stage from competitive play, because the stage casually is a lot of fun, and I enjoyed my time with it in both Splatoon 1 and 2, but now as a competitive player, my viewpoint is a lot more critical. So while I do love the verticality of the original, we gotta cut it down. The original stage was so vertical that it made reaching mid an absolute chore, as well as making players vulnerable and predictable. And with the Zuka meta we're in right now, you could pretty easily get shredded by one of these things if you aren't careful, as well as getting lasered by ballpoint or sniped by a charger, etc. Making the stage less vertical means that dropping, while still predictable, takes less time and makes you less vulnerable. We've also expanded the spawn region by tenfold because this was not enough protection from the enemy. The area at the top has not only been doubled in size, but now also has an inkable wall here so you can get back up and paint. This entire section is also blocked off from the enemy with uninkable walls surrounding it so they can't get up to you, as well as adding a small drop here so they still can't get up. And we've added this new section to the far right of spawn that you can also launch to in your spawn drone, with even more uninkable walls below it. Oh, and a defending sponge if you ever want to come back up here. This gives more areas out of spawn and allows for a much quicker way to get into the battle. You may have also noticed these two lines right here. Well, as well as the ink rails that were introduced in the Splatoon 2 version of the stage, we'll also be adding grind rails into the Splatoon 3 version. This gives even more ways out of spawn and a way so that players can ink the terrain and move to a new part of the map pretty quickly. Along with that, we have completely removed all drops in the stage so that there's much more freedom to move around, as well as making most of the once uninkable walls now inkable. So there really isn't much you can't do on this stage. Other than spawn, these are the only uninkable walls on the map, sort of. The bottom of the wall will be inkable, but the top remains uninkable. This is so that you have two options: go up the ramp where the enemy can see you and kill you pretty easily, or do a squid surge on this part of the wall to try and take them from surprise. This is something they've utilized in single player, but not in multiplayer. Mid remains very similar from before, with one significant difference being that it's much more open. There's more room to operate, and E-Leader can't reach the other side of this drop anymore, meaning that yeah, long-ranged weapons still are strong, but not as strong as before to give shorter-ranged weapons an actual chance. In Splat Zones, we'll make it so that the zone covers the entirety of mid so that you can't cheese it with a Reef Slider or Ink Vac, and in Rainmaker, this rail right here will be shortened so that you can't swim all the way to the podium. The tower path will remain largely the same, as well as the basket placements and clamblets. The goal was to make the stage have a plethora of different ways to explore, stripping the negative aspects of the original out while keeping the charm and verticality. You have 3 different ways out of spawn, quicker ways to get to mid, multiple routes to reach the enemy's side of the map, a bigger platform and mid to maneuver around. There are no ways to fall off, almost every wall is now inkable, and there's just more to do and physically interact with. Thanks to Bipedal Squid for helping me design these visuals. Go check out his channel and Patreon and subscribe so we hit 20k before 20